Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of the ISM Lunch and Learn webinar series. Today we are going to be taking a look at Sage Inventory Advisor with Mr. Tom Wilson from Sage. Sage Inventory Advisor is a really great option for keeping track of all of your inventory, and I'm going to let Tom show you just that. With that, I'm going to turn everything over to Tom.
Okay.
As a note, so one bit of housekeeping. Sorry, Tom. Please remember to enter your audio PIN numbers so that I can take you off of mute if there are questions. If you do not enter your audio PIN, you must do so. And you can always use the chat window if need be. And sorry, Tom, now I'm really going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Tom Wilson. I work for Sage, and I'm what's called a product specialist for the Inventory Advisor solution. So my privilege to speak with you today. I really appreciate your time. Hey, what I have is a very short PowerPoint introduction that will introduce the concepts of a planning tool, compare and contrast that to your Sage ERP solution. Then I'll pull up a live instance of Inventory Advisor where I'll do a navigational tour, show you a few of the highlights, and then we'll wrap up with a couple of slides that talk about the pricing and the installation. I'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions, and I'll be glad to field those, as well as I'll put my contact information up, so if you have any follow-up questions that you want to set up a follow-on time, we can do that as well. But you should be seeing a screen that says Inventory Optimization, and I'm going to go to the next slide, and it says, what is Sage Inventory Advisor? And Inventory Advisor is an example of a connected service. And one of the things Sage is trying to do is to enhance the investment our customers have made in our ERP platforms by offering solutions that complement or extend that investment. Inventory Advisor works with Sage 100, 300, 500, and X3. And Inventory Advisor will complement that investment by offering solutions that extend or expand that investment. And more, our customers are asking that these extensions be deployed in a cloud or internet-enabled environment so that you can access it 24/7 from any device, any browser. And because planning tools can be quite expensive, even price prohibitive if you were to pay a full license fee up front. So instead, Sage has put this on a month-to-month subscription. There is no long-term commitment. Instead, there is only a single month commitment. You're only committed to the first month. If any time after the first month this doesn't meet your needs, you can cancel at any time. But this is a planning tool. It's designed to tap into the rich transactional data that's in an ERP platform, harness that data, funnel it into a software application that is based on industry best practice and analytics to recommend the optimal stocking levels and replenishment timeframes. It'll identify at any given stocking location what your inventory is, recommend what it should be, identify any items you're out of or about to run out of, what impact that could have on sales. And if you're spending a lot of time making decisions on inventory stocking and replenish, this will automate that process and do it with an industry best practice analytical engine. In fact, along those lines, if you look at your current ERP system, it has a module. It's either inventory control in Sage 300, inventory management in Sage 100 and X3, but that module does a really good job keeping track of what your current inventory is, what is in stock, where the items are located, on-hand balances. It keeps track of hundreds of details from costing to pricing, and all of that is necessary to keep track of what your current inventory is. But that system or that module doesn't necessarily answer the question, is that what should be in stock? When should you place orders given the demand for the items, lead time from your suppliers? And most of our customers have to make those decisions outside of Sage ERP, usually in some kind of a manual tool, a manual report, maybe a spreadsheet, but that approach can often result in inventory challenges. In fact, 42% of our customers have said they struggle with stocking out of inventory, running out of an item, not being able to fulfill a customer service or sale. 37% of our customers have said they have the opposite problem. They tend to overbuy, ending up with excess inventory, money tied up in working capital that could be used for other things. And 21% have said they just spend way too much time in a manual approach trying to figure out what that inventory should be. And that's what Inventory Advisor brings to the table. It does not replace anything in ERP. In fact, it taps into the data in ERP, pulls that into Inventory Advisor, and harnesses that to feed the planning engine. But what Inventory Advisor does bring to the table is inside the circle. And it starts, first and foremost, with a forecasting engine. It's pretty hard to determine what your inventory should be if you don't have a pretty good profile of your demand moving forward. So it has a very robust forecast engine, and I'll show you that in the software. It has an ordering and scheduling engine. So for every item, whether it's a finished good or whether it's a component or raw material that goes into a finished good through a bill of materials, for any item at any given stocking location, Inventory Advisor will recommend the minimum stocking level, the maximum stocking level. It'll calculate a reorder point. Then, given the demand for the item, lead time from your suppliers, current stock on hand, it will identify when you need to place orders to keep that inventory at an optimal level. And if that does result in a recommended purchase order, you can send that back to Sage ERP for execution. Now, if it does identify items that you're out of or about to run out of, it'll alert you, especially based on those items that are critical to your business. Now, the way it works is Inventory Advisor is a cloud-delivered service. Sage will set up your instance of Inventory Advisor on a Sage-provided server, which is represented graphically at the top in the cloud. It will set up a connector through the internet to connect to your Sage ERP server. That connection is highly secure. It is encrypted with keys on both ends. Your instance of Inventory Advisor is unique to you. Only you have access to it. But on a daily basis, and if you want to run this more or less frequently, you can, Inventory Advisor will connect to your ERP server and upload several files. These are read-only files. It's not touching your transaction data. It's reading your sales history, any orders you have from your suppliers, orders from your customers, on-hand balances. If you do any manufacturing or kitting, it'll upload the bill of material file. That takes about 10 minutes to upload that data into your instance of Inventory Advisor. Then Inventory Advisor will disconnect from your ERP server. The data will go into your instance of Inventory Advisor, where it'll go through a series of calculations. Then your planners, your purchasing managers, anyone that you want to have access to the planning tool can. The subscription is for unlimited users. As many people as you want to access the planning tool can. Does not impact your Sage ERP user IDs. You're not burning up a user ID. It does not impact the maintenance you're paying on Sage ERP. These are users you want to give access to the planning tool. And you access the planning tool from any browser, Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome, any device that supports a browser. I've demonstrated this on my iPhone, my iPad. Today I'm in my home office on my laptop using Internet Explorer, but it looks exactly the same. It just depends on what device and an approach is most easy for you. But you will be presented with a series of planning recommendations, starting with what we call a dashboard, which is a high-level summary, a summary of all the inventory at any given stocking location. From there, I can see what my inventory is, what the tool recommends, where I have too much, where I'm out, what I need to order, and I can drill into detail as I need to make those decisions. A couple more slides, and then we'll jump right into the software. But what Inventory Advisor is designed to do is answer a couple of questions. From an inventory perspective, is there anything that needs attention? Are you out of an item, about to run out of an item? Do you need to place an order? And what do you need to order or make for your manufactured items to keep that inventory at an optimal level? And to do that, it brings several capabilities outside of the kinds of functionality you have in ERP, starting on the bottom right, first and foremost, that forecast engine. I'll showcase that in the software. But on the bottom left, this is an industry best practice, and it's product importance, or sometimes called item classification. And what that is not all items contribute the same to your business. Some items contribute greater in sales, other items contribute greater in inventory turns. And the best practice is you might want to set more aggressive replenishment policies for those items that contribute more to your business, and you certainly want to be alerted to those items if you're starting to run out. But it starts by identifying those items. So by loading sales history, Inventory Advisor will be able to rank every item based on its sales contribution, and it'll rank it as either an A, B, or a C item. Now the default is an A items are those that generate 80% of the value to your business. Easily changed, but usually it's an 80-20 rule where 20% of the items are generating 80% of the value. B's are the next 16% and C's are the bottom 4. But again, those parameters are easily changed. Inventory Advisor will also take the exact same item and rank it based on its inventory turns, and it'll rank it as high, medium, or low. And that produces a 3x3 matrix. And that has an intersection of your A, B, or C rows. So every item is going to fall into one of those 9 boxes, which is the intersection of an A, B, or C row and a high, medium, or low column. So those boxes in the upper right, the green ones, those are your bread and butter items. Those are the items that contribute the most to your business. Those are the items you want to set higher priorities if you're starting to run out and you want to be alerted. But it starts by identifying those items. And at the end of the day, what most of our customers have told us when they do turn this on is of their existing inventory, typically 2 to 10% of that inventory is in some kind of a stocked out status, Either you're out of an item or about to run out of an item, which could have an impact on customer service and sales. 10 to 15% of that inventory is in some kind of a surplus status, where you're either out of an item or where we have too much of an item, and that could result in money tied up in working capital that could be used for other things. And roughly half time is not necessarily spent making planning decisions, but spent collecting all the information you need to make planning decisions. So Inventory Advisor will not replace the planner, will not replace the expertise or the knowledge you bring to the table. What it will replace is the manual tools, reports, and probably spreadsheets you might be using now with a much more automated tool based on analytics. So that is a quick introduction to Inventory Advisor. Next, I'll pull up a live instance of Inventory Advisor. Bear with me one second. And I will give a navigational tour of Inventory Advisor. We'll start at a high level. We'll drill down into a little detail. And if you follow my cursor on the left, I am on a live instance of Inventory Advisor. I happen to be using Internet Explorer on my laptop, but I have demonstrated this on my iPhone and iPad. It looks exactly the same, just depends on what device is convenient for you. Inventory Advisor is highly scalable. We have customers with less than $100,000 of inventory using this tool. We've got customers with over 50 million. My demo database happens to have about 10, just to give you a feel for the scale. I'm going to go ahead and shrink the menu bar at the top so we can see the full screen. And what you're looking at is the opening screen or dashboard for all of the inventory that's currently sitting in my Los Angeles stocking location. Now you can have multiple companies, multiple locations. If you do have multiple locations, you simply hit this dashboard button and it'll show all of the stocking locations that you're planning inventory in Inventory Advisor. And those stocking locations are set up in your ERP and loaded into Inventory Advisor. In my demo database, I have 4 physical stocking locations. My Los Angeles warehouse stores inventory and replenishes from suppliers, but my central warehouse is a little different concept. It does the same thing, stores inventory, replenishes from suppliers, but it also replenishes forward or remote stocking locations. So my New York and Detroit branches store inventory. They do not replenish, though, from the supplier. They replenish from the central warehouse. So that demand needs to pass up. The central warehouse needs to place orders on their behalf and then issue transfer orders to move that inventory back down to the remote locations. If you want to set up a virtual warehouse, maybe a customer location that you have vendor-managed inventory, you can manage that as well. But to illustrate the dashboard, I'm going to pick on the main location in my demo database, which is Los Angeles, and by clicking on that, it will show the inventory that is currently in Los Angeles. And again, think of the dashboard as a high-level or macro view of the world. It's giving me a high-level view of all the inventory. And the idea is with a quick glance, I'll be able to glance through the panels, see what my inventory statuses are, items that need attention, and from here I can drill into lots of detail. So let me walk you through the panels. The first panel is called Stock Holding. And it shows that right now, in the Los Angeles warehouse, you are storing $10.4 million of inventory at your cost. The planning tool, though, is suggesting you should be carrying 6.9. That's based on the demand of the item and the lead time from the supplier. That would be the optimal inventory to fulfill that demand. I can see how that inventory is trending over time. Each of the bars represents a period of time. There are 12. They can be displayed in days, weeks, or months, so I can see how my inventory has been trending over the last 12 days, 12 weeks, 12 months. And if I leave it at weeks, this is how your inventory has been trending over the last 12 weeks. Yellow is simply the first time data was loaded from your ERP, and if I hover, at that time you were carrying $10.8 million of inventory. I can see how it's been trending, in this case over the weeks. The top of the blue bar is your actual inventory. The shaded area is the model or recommended inventory. I can see how my actual to recommended has been progressing over the last 12 weeks, with red simply being the last time data was loaded from Sage ERP, usually last night, at which time you were carrying 10.4 against a recommendation of 6.9. So with a quick glance, I can see I've got quite a bit more inventory than the tool is recommending. In fact, if I slide over to the next panel, you do have some excess stock, defined as inventory above the maximum recommended stocking levels. There are 2,190 items in excess, and that excess inventory is costing your business $3.4 million. And if I hover where it says Full Report, if I click right there, that'll produce an online report of all 2,190 items. From that report, I can slice, filter, sort, come up with more manageable lists of items so that I can start to attack that excess inventory. But on the dashboard, we're trying to bring your attention to the top 5. These are the 5 biggest contributors to your excess problem. These 5 items alone are costing you $288,000 in excess inventory. Almost 10% of your problem is represented by just 5 items. So if you do nothing else on a daily, weekly basis, you might want to keep your eye on these top 5 lists, because if you burn down that excess inventory, you'll see a new list of 5, and eventually you'll start to eliminate that excess inventory and free up the working capital. But that's where you have too much right now. Looking a little more forward, we've identified 411 items on order. If it's a manufactured item, it's on work order. If it's a purchased item, it's on purchase order. But there are 411 items currently on order, and we're predicting that when those orders arrive, that inventory is going to go straight to excess, adding an additional $1.5 million to your excess problem. We call that a surplus order. Those would be items whose order you might want to review because they are candidates to either delay or cancel the order. And the idea would be, hey, heads up, let's try to stop this before it becomes excess inventory. So these first 3 panels are really addressing where do you have too much inventory. The second 3 panels are looking at the opposite side of the coin. Are there any items you don't have enough of? And it starts with what we call fill rate, which is over the last 30 days, did you have an item in stock or not to meet your demand? And right now in Los Angeles, you're achieving an 86% fill rate, meaning 86% of the time you needed an item, you had it. And you're doing that with $10.4 million of inventory. But you could be achieving a 97% target and doing it with just $6.9 million of inventory if you had the right mix of items. So it's not just a matter of we have too much inventory. We talked about that. But because we're not meeting our fill rate targets, there's other items you may not have enough of. So we got to eliminate some excess items, and in other cases, we may need to build up some items. In fact, you are stocked out. In the Los Angeles warehouse, you have 924 items with zero inventory. But there's demand on those items. So until you replenish, which is either until the next order arrives, if there's an order in place, or it's full lead time if you have to place an order from scratch. But during that time, during that window where you have no inventory, but you have demand, you're at risk of not being able to fulfill the order. And so you are at risk of losing up to $841,000 in lost sales. Does not mean you will lose the sale, but you are at risk. And I can look at all 924 items. Again, here are the top 5. These 5 items alone are potentially costing you $242,000 in lost sales. A third of my problem is just 5 items. So these would be 5 items we highly recommend you pay attention to, especially in the stocked out panel. These are items you're out of, but you have demand. So some decisions you need to make. Hey, do I have this item on order? If so, if it's coming in shortly, I might be okay. If not, I might need to scramble. If it's not, do I need to expedite an order? Do I have this item at another location and I could quickly transfer it? And by drilling into the detail, I'll be able to make all those decisions. But that's where you have too much inventory right now. If I look a little more forward, you do have some items that you're about to run out of. And these are items that you have some inventory today, but we're predicting before your next replenishment, you will run out. And when you do, you could lose another $161,000 in sales. Again, these are the top 5. So day in the life, if I come in as a planner, I can quickly toggle between my locations. I can select a location, and I can very quickly see what my inventory is, what the tool recommends it should be. Where do I have too much inventory? What impact is that having on my business? Which are the most critical to pay some attention to? Are there any items I'm out of or about to run out of? What impact could that have on my sales? Which are the most critical to pay some attention to? So from here, I can do a lot of things. I can drill into a few of these items to start to make some decisions, or I can just go and say, show me a list of everything I need to buy, one comprehensive list broken out by supplier. And let's do both. The second is called an order schedule, and I'll do that second. But first, let's drill into an item. I don't know, let's drill into an item that is stocked out. Because kind of a day in the life of a planner, these are the ones you probably want to make your highest priority focus. Because you're out of this item, it could cost you sales. Well, this first one, it could cost you $90,000 in lost sales. It is an A item. It is a high-turning item, so it's critical to my business. I honestly don't know what that is, but if I hover, it'll give me the item description. And if I notice there's this little shadow, that's a comment. And if I click on it, it'll show me the comment. But now let's drill into this item to see the kind of decisions we can make. In fact, I'm going to click right on the item, and it's going to take me to the item detail. So it's going to drill me down to the detail, and it's laid out the same for every item. But what we're looking at is BQ5549 as it currently sits in Los Angeles. Right now it is stocked out because I have none in stock. Inventory Advisor is recommending that you place an order for 6,912 units today. Now, what Inventory Advisor is going to do is it's going to show what your current inventory is. And for a stocked out item, that's critical because I need to make some decisions right now. Well, right now, you have no items in stock. In fact, you have 319 on back order. This is all out of ERP. You haven't allocated any, which means you're in a negative position today. Well, the good news is you do have 6,040 on order. But when are they coming in? Are they coming in today, tomorrow, next month? If they're coming in today or tomorrow, I may not need to panic. But if they're not coming in for 30 days, I need to either expedite an order or find some. So when are those 6,000 coming in? I don't have to go back to Sage 100 and look that up, or Sage ERP and look that up. I can come down here, and here are those items on purchase order, a data feed out of ERP. And those 6,000 items on order, they actually consist of several orders. Here's the order number. Here is the expected arrival dates. And I can very quickly see what's on order and when it's coming in. And if that isn't quick enough, I might want to see if I can expedite that order. And if that doesn't work, the next question I might have is, well, do I have this item at another location? Maybe I could move it very quickly. So right now I'm looking at Los Angeles. Well, show me what this item's status is at all those other locations. And by clicking on that button one time, I can see what this item's status is at all those other locations. And it turns out I'm stocked out just about everywhere. I do have some surplus maybe in Chicago, so I could drill into that from here and maybe see some excess that I could move, and in which case I would just transfer some items from Chicago to my LA warehouse. But I have visibility to make that decision. So that's what your current inventory is. That's what's on order. That's what's at the other locations. Well, now let's talk about what your inventory should be. And that's what Inventory Advisor brings to the table. And it starts first and foremost with a forecast. Pretty hard to determine what your inventory should be if I don't know what my demand is. So Inventory Advisor will automatically load the sales history for every item. You can have up to 5 years. This item has 27 months of sales history, which is represented graphically in blue. Inventory Advisor will compare that pattern in blue to 15 different forecasting methods. So it's going to look at things like linear regression, sum of the year's digits, exponential smoothing. It's going to look for trends, patterns, spikes. And in this case, it has found some trends. There are some spikes and valleys, and it has determined that a seasonal forecasting methodology is the best fit. It'll test all of those models, but a seasonal forecast for this item is the best fit to predict future demand. So it has used a seasonal methodology and has used it to create a computer-generated forecast for the next 12 months. So everything you see here happened automatically. Inventory Advisor loaded the sales history, selected the best forecasting method, and has used it to create a computer-generated forecast. Now, if you want to go in and make an adjustment to that forecast, you certainly can. You can drill into the forecast and make some adjustments. So a very robust forecast. Now, the next thing that Inventory Advisor is going to recommend is what is the minimum stock you should be carrying for this item in the Los Angeles warehouse. Now, you can do that in your ERP today. You can go in and there's a field and you can set the minimum stocking level. But the question is, how did you calculate the minimum and how often do you update it? Well, most of my customers tell me it's kind of a best guess and they don't update it very often. And it's critical to get that right because minimum protects you from running out, protects you because things happen. Customers order more than you think. Suppliers don't always deliver on time. So you want to set a minimum to protect you from running out. You don't want it so big that you see excess built up, but getting it right is critical. Well, Inventory Advisor is going to recommend the minimum stock based on several very dynamic inputs. Well, one of those inputs, remember that industry best practice? You might want to set a more aggressive target for those items that contribute more to your business. You absolutely want to look at the lead time. This is a purchased item. It has a 90-day lead time, as told to us by ERP. Well, just because I have a 90-day lead time doesn't necessarily, though, mean that this supplier is going to deliver in 90 days. What if they're always late? Well, if they're late, I probably should increase my safety stock. So one of the things Inventory Advisor will pull out of ERP is just that. How is this supplier doing delivering this item? If I click on it, this is literally, for a purchased item, the purchase order history file. Is this supplier delivering on time? Are they delivering the right quantities? I can see that graphically, or I can see the actual transactions. These are the actual transactions. And based on those transactions, this supplier is not doing very good. In fact, they're doing quite poorly against the stated lead time. So that suggests that we need to increase the safety stock because the risk that this supplier delivers in 90 days is rather poor, so we should increase the safety stock. Well, we'll do the same analysis with forecast. What's the risk that this forecast isn't accurate? Inventory Advisor will check the forecast to actual sales and will trigger and alert you to any forecasts that need attention, and it will use it as yet another offset to set the safety stock. So based on all of those inputs, Inventory Advisor is suggesting you keep 138 days of this item just in safety stock. What in the world does that mean? How many units of this item do we need to have in stock? Well, that all comes together in the policy panel. So based on this item, Inventory Advisor is going to look at it in both days of coverage and transpose it into actual units. And days is a textbook equation. When you take your lead time, which was imported from Sage ERP, and you add it to your safety stock, which was just calculated by Inventory Advisor, together that equals your reorder point. When you go below, in this case, 228 days of coverage, trigger an order. The order you place depends on your cover forward period. This item was set up for 7 days. You might want to tie a more aggressive coverage period to your higher value items as well. But this item, when you go below 228, place an order for 7, which gets you to your max. So here is your min, your reorder point, and your max. And Inventory Advisor does this for every item, at every location, every day, and then it will transpose it into units. How many units do you need to cover that 90 days? How many units do you need to cover that 138 days of safety stock? Depends on the forecast. So based on this forecast in yellow, you need 4,000 units just to meet your demand over lead time. So now in units, driven off of a forecast, here is your min, your reorder point, and your max. And Inventory Advisor will do that every day for every item at every location, and then it'll compare that to remember what your inventory is. Well, when that order comes in, you'll have 5,721 units. Good news, that's enough to meet your demand over lead time, so you're not going to run out in the extreme short term, but it is below your reorder point. So that is going to trigger a recommendation to place an order to get you back to your max. So the difference between 5,721 and 12,633 is you should place an order for another 6,912. So in addition to the order coming in, you should place an additional order today so that down the road, based on the lead time and the demand of this item, you won't run out again. So Inventory Advisor is doing all of this for every item, at every location, every day. Now, do I have to look up every item to see if I need to place an order? No, that's what that order schedule does. And I'll show you that in just a second. But this was a relatively simple item. This was an item that you maybe buy and resell. Let me go back to the dashboard. And what we've done is we've gone to the dashboard, we've maybe toggled between a different location, we've looked at the dashboard, we've identified some items that need attention, we've even drilled into one of the most important ones to make some decisions. Well, let me show you another item. Now, the reason I want to show you this item is it's a little different view. This is a raw material. This is a raw material that goes into several finished goods. So if you're doing any kitting, assembly, or manufacturing. Well, how much of that raw material to have in stock depends on a lot of factors. So let's go look up an item. Now, this item's not on the dashboard. The reason is it's not a problem at the moment. I can still go look it up, though. So I want to look up ST950. I don't remember the last letter, but show me every ST950 in the Los Angeles warehouse, and here they are. This is the one I want. ST9501 is a raw material. It goes into several finished goods. So how much of ST9501 to have in stock depends in part on the demand for those finished goods and the ratio through the bill of material down to this raw material. Well, that's just one part of the story. This item can also be sold by itself. It's a part. It's a part that goes into finished goods and assembly, but it's a part that could be sold standalone to my customers. So it has its own sales history and its own demand stream. So it has multiple demand streams, and we need to factor all that in to determine how much of this item to have in stock. So let's start with the bill of material demand. Because Inventory Advisor loaded the bill of material file, ST9501 was flagged as being part of a bill of material. And if you come down here, this little bill of material tab, the flag is on. And if I click on it, it'll show the world through the lens of ST9501. It is a raw material. It goes into these three finished goods. So how much ST9501 to have in stock depends on the demand for those finished goods and the bill of material ratio down to the item. Well, Inventory Advisor isn't just planning that one item. It's planning all of the components and subcomponents at a multi-indented bill of material level. But just to show you the illustration, let's keep it simple, and let's just look at the one item. So how much of it to have in stock, again, depends on the demand. Well, let's look at that view. I'm going to switch views. And now what we're looking at is the 3 finished goods. If I want to drill into those items in their detail, I can. But Inventory Advisor will load the sales history for that finished good. It'll forecast the demand. You can go in and make adjustments to it. But based on the demand for this one finished good, exploded through the bill of material, and in this case at a ratio of 3 to 1, I need 3 of this raw material to go into one of these BQs. Given the demand for the BQ, I need 2.9 thousand of this raw material just in the month of November just to meet the demand for this one finished good. And so now the same holds for the second finished good and the same thing for the third to give you a total bill of material demand for this raw material. Well, again, that's only part of the story. Let's scroll back up. Notice that my yellow's in 2 pieces now. The top is the bill of material demand we just looked at. But this item can also be sold by itself. So it has its own sales history. It has its own forecast. And if I hover, you'll see just that. S is the sales history for standalone demand of this item. If this item never sold by itself, the S and the F would be zeros. F, therefore, is the forecast for this item as a standalone item. B is the bill of material demand we just looked at. T, therefore, is the total demand for all of the uses of this item. So now we have a total aggregate demand, and then the same logic applies. Here's your minimum recommended stocking level. Based on that total aggregate demand, here is your min, your reorder point, and your max. Let's compare that to what Sage 100 says is in stock. Well, you have 8,000 in stock. You have 139 on back order, which brings you up to 78.95. At the moment, you have 566 on order, which brings you to 84.61. Well, good news, 84.61 is more than enough to meet your demand over lead time. So you're not at risk of running out. You can still place an order and get it before you can run out. But that 84.61 is below the reorder point, so it's recommending you place an order to get back to the max, which is 3,580 units. So even though I have an order in place, even though I'm okay right now, it's suggesting you go ahead and place an additional order so it'll arrive on time. And if I want to see what those orders look like over the next 12 months, I can see what the recommended orders are for this raw material over the next 12 months based on all of the uses of that raw material. And again, this is just one more item that Inventory Advisor is recommending you order. Now, does that mean, again, I have to look up every item? Absolutely not. Let's go back to the dashboard. I've drilled around the dashboard. I've looked at some problem areas. I've made some decisions. Now I'm ready to say, hey, just show me all of the items, one comprehensive list of everything that has triggered a reorder point. I want to see one list broken out by supplier. I click the Orders tab one time, and it will produce show me everything I need to order, either work order for a finished item or a purchase order for a purchased item. Show me everything I need to order for my Los Angeles warehouse across all my suppliers, and here's the list. Here is the list of every item that you need to order. And if you have a manufactured item, you probably want to set up a supplier called factory with the lead times of how long it takes to make that item. For a purchased item, you set up the actual supplier. So for instance, the consolidated tire supplier. Inventory Advisor is recommending that you place 4 items on order. Now, you may order 100 items from this supplier, but today 4 have triggered that reorder point. It's recommending 4,958 units. It's going to cost $333,000. And here's the cubic feet and weight, which might be helpful if I'm trying to fill up a truck or a container. But as a purchasing manager, if I want to look at the recommendation to place 4 items on order with the consolidated tire company, drilling down into information to validate those recommendations, possibly making adjustments and changes, all you have to do is select this recommendation, and let's go look at it so that we can create a purchase order. And if you follow my little cursor, we're recommending for the consolidated tire company what you need to buy for the Los Angeles warehouse. Here's that same list, but for each one of those 4 items, in the order schedule, Inventory Advisor will show you a summary of that item's detail. So here is an item, here is that forecast, and if that doesn't look right to you, for instance, that spike looks funny to me, maybe I'll drill back into that item and take a peek at that forecast in more detail. Here's that information in days and units. This item's contribution to the business. Right now, this item's about to stock out. Inventory Advisor is suggesting you place 300 on order, $64 a piece. It's going to cost $19,000. and with a 90-day lead time, it should arrive on February 8th. Again, if that isn't enough information, I can always drill back to the detail. I can even do that in a new window, and now I can look at the detail for this item. And I can continue to reviewing each of the items, and I can continue to review. I can make adjustments along the way. Maybe for this item, I don't want to order 400. I'd rather order 420. I can go in, I can make an adjustment, I can tab out, and then any changes I made are summarized down here, and I can continue to review each item, drilling down, drilling around as I need to validate, make adjustments along the way, and when I'm now ready to send this back to Sage ERP for execution, all I have to do is hit the download button, and this will be sent, extracted from Inventory Advisor as a file, and sent and imported into ERP. If it's a purchase order, it'll be imported into the purchase order module, and you'll still need to execute that there, but any rules, procedures, workflows still apply, but you need to execute the purchase order. You're just making your decisions in Inventory Advisor. And what most of our customers find as they start to use this tool, they'll start to see their inventory trend towards the model. They'll start to burn down their excess inventory. They'll start to eliminate stockouts by catching them ahead of time and then dealing with them when they get them. And if you can eliminate stockouts and improve sales, if you can eliminate excess and free up working capital, and if you can give planners tools that give them the ability to spend more time making decisions and less time collecting data, the ROI against a monthly subscription can be quite substantial. Now, in fact, let me transition to that. We'll finish with just 2 PowerPoints, and then I'll open it up for Q&A. Let me go back to the PowerPoint, and let's talk for a minute about the pricing. So Inventory Advisor, first of all, is for unlimited users. As many people can access the planning tool as you want. You are only committed to 1 month. You can cancel anytime after 5 months. There is a one-time setup fee of $2,250, and that covers our cost of setting up your instance of Inventory Advisor on a Sage-provided server, setting up the connector to your ERP server and loading your data, providing training for anyone that wants to take it, as well as some consulting services to get you up and running. Then there is the monthly subscription, and it is based, there's a base fee of $199, and then we have what's called a value fee, which is based on the value of the inventory you're planning in the tool. That's only the inventory you're planning in the tool. So if you've got items you don't want to load or locations you don't want to load, those don't count. But for every item you load into the tool at increments of 250,000, and this is a live spreadsheet. So let me go run it. And let's just assume, for argument's sake, that I've got $2 million of inventory value. So let's plug that in. With an inventory value of $2 million, the monthly fee, which is the base fee plus the value fee, and in this case you would be with $2 million of inventory, you'd be in this up to 2.5, which is $18.50 for every 250,000. So that adds up to $328.50. So your monthly fee is $328.50 a month. Your setup is $22.50, so your commitment is the first month plus the setup, or $25.78, and that's your only commitment. Anytime after that, if this doesn't meet your needs, you can cancel. Now, Inventory Advisor is a little different paradigm in installing software as well. It's a pretty rapid implementation. There's 5 onboarding steps, and that's all included in that setup fee. The first 2 steps are pretty quick. My team will work with you in a session, something like this, where we'll get together on a WebEx. We'll talk about your locations, how your locations interact with each other. We'll talk about any items you want to plan or not plan. We'll set up your instance, set up the connector, and load your data. So at the end of step 2, which is probably about a 2-hour step to do 1 and 2, you'll be able to see your data in Inventory Advisor. But the first thing you're going to want to do is there is a very comprehensive report that comes out of Inventory Advisor. And the reality is any planning tool is only as good as the data you put into it. And so Inventory Advisor will evaluate just that. It has a very comprehensive report that will identify all of the items loaded into Inventory Advisor, and it will flag or alert you to items that might need attention. Hey, here's an item that had a negative on-hand balance. Here's an item whose cost price was greater than your selling price. Here's some items whose purchase orders are overdue. And so it will alert you to those, and you might want to go back into ERP and use that as a guide to do maybe some cleanup. That step may take 5 minutes. It may take a couple of days. It just depends on your data. If that results in any adjustments to Inventory Advisor, we'll get back together and make the adjustments. Then you're going to want to take some training. It's very comprehensive. It's delivered online. You can take it as many times as you want. As many people can take it as many times as they want. If you took it start to finish, you're probably looking at about 5 hours. realistically, you're probably going to have several sessions. You might be looking at more like 5 to 8 hours. Then after you take the training, you're going to want to spend some time with my technical team to review any questions you had from the training, questions from seeing your data in the tool. Anything's fair game. But realistically, you're looking at probably about 20 to 25 hours of your time, usually over a 2 to 4 week time frame, and you're up and running and live on the software. Now, once you're using the software, you'll be able to see there's a lot of help in the software. There's a gold support plan as part of the monthly subscription. You'll have access to help. You can call, email. There's even a chat right on the Inventory Advisor screen that you can get a live chat going with the technical team while you're online using the software. If you're interested, it's purchased directly through Sage. It's one of the few items that's not purchased through your partner. Now, ISM would get full credit for the sale, but it is purchased through Sage. I would send you 2 documents. One is a 1-page order form that identifies that monthly fee. The second is a payment form where you can set up the payment, which can be either a credit card or an ACH against a bank account. And if you'd like to see that, just let me know. In fact, here is my contact information. Here's a link where you might get a little more data, but here's my contact information. So, and I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I'd be glad to field any questions today. But if you have any questions, you want to have a one-on-one conversation, you want to talk about more your unique inventory requirements, I'll be glad to set up a follow-on call. Or if you'd like to see a proposal, just shoot me an email. Let me know what your inventory value is, and I'll be glad to turn that around for you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. And if you want to go ahead and open up the lines, I'd be glad to field any questions.
All lines are open, so if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in. Give it a second. You can also use the chat window if you prefer. I am not seeing any questions. If you come up with anything, please feel free to reach out to me at am@goism.com. Next Tuesday, our ISM Lunch and Learn for November is going to be budgeting tools for Sage 100. We are moving toward year-end close. Next month, we will have only 2 webinars, which will deal specifically with year-end close procedures for Sage 100. And January, we will be off for the actual year-end close. So I thank you for your time today. Please feel free to reach out. Tom, thank you so much for your expertise and a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, we appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.